We're delighted today to have with us Professor Giorgio Coricelli. He is a professor of economics and psychology and a member of the neuroscience program at the University of Southern California. He received his PhD from the University of Arizona in 2002. Since then, he has been very prolific in his research in experimental economics, as well as an important contributor in neuroeconomics, an exciting field. In particular, he's made important contributions in the use of brain imagery and eye tracking, eye tracking methodologies in economics. And we're very pleased to have him here today at the Economic Science Laboratory. So welcome, Giorgio.
Thank you very much.
Let me start by asking you, when were you here? When were you involved in ESL, in the research going on here? What time period?
So I arrived in Tucson in 1997, so last century. And first year actually was here as a visiting scholar with a fellowship from Italy, and I was visiting the lab essentially. And then at the end of the year, I was undecided what to do. I applied for several PhD programs. And I remember actually the idea, I wanted to go to New York and NYU, and they asked me a recommendation letter from an American scholar. So I was with Vernon, so I went one day to ask him for a letter.
Yes.
And he was always amazing very nice with me. So and this was the very end of my period here. What I thought would have been my period here, and then he asked me what, I was very happy about myself staying in the lab around here, and then he asked me, what do you want to do? And I say, I want to do the P of the PhD. He stopped me and he said, we want to do a new PhD program on neuroeconomics and market design. And you are one person we are targeting. So I was paralyzed. I didn't ask the letter for NYU, which was technically in. And then I stayed here for my PhD. So this is a story of and for me it was very beautiful. So we started this new PhD program. I was mainly interacting with Kevin McCabe. So Kevin and Vernon, I think, are the two fundamental figures for for neuroeconomics, particularly from an ideological and economic point of view. So they really saw the potential for societies. They had a very broader view. And so we started essentially mainly with Kevin, Vernon. The lab was an incredible environment. Intellectually was amazing. So they were beyond economics. They were inviting anthropologists, psychologists. So it was really a particular moment. Also, I think of the academically was really an interesting period, and for me it was amazing. So I really loved.
What projects were you involved with while you were here?
Yeah, so mainly from the very beginning with Kevin was involved in the neuroeconomics project. It was a paper Kevin published 3 years after on cooperation, so were trust game and dictator games, mini dictator games, mini ultimatum games also, mini ultimatum, sorry, and we had participated in the scanner, and there were 2 main conditions. One where they were actually playing with another person and then playing against a computer. This actually was, I think, believe the first time that anybody in economics, experimental econ, and also, let's say, early neuroeconomics run experiments in human versus computer. It was a very beautiful study. And then, so we ran a behavioral part, that was part also of my dissertation, and then the fMRI. It was very interesting. We had to, was the very beginning. We had to go, I remember the first meetings where we went to neuroscience at USC, U of A, sorry.
Yes.
And I remember when Kevin first pronounced the term neuroeconomics, and they were psychologists, they felt, threatened, and like something happened. And but it was very interesting, at a great time. And yeah.
So it's very, initially when you talk to neuroscientists, you talk past each other. It's very hard to communicate.
Right.
You have to
Right,
build up a common vocabulary.
So was really, and at the very beginning when nobody knew about this neuroeconomics, and in general they had kind of aversive reaction towards economists, so it was were not very welcome. But I think was extremely interesting, and at the same time, so I was interacting with many people in the lab here. We with Stephen Rassenti, and the students were great actually. So I overlapped with Rumen Vragov, but then
Yes.
also spent some more time with the group when they moved to George Mason, and was one of my best friends at that time. So it was really interesting. We were living down here physically, actually, and once I think I slept several times in the lab. and I think at some point we got also an email like they were complaining about people sleeping in the lab.
I see, it's funny.
But we love this place physically also. This was amazing. So late 90s, we have the lab that is today it's still one of the best lab in the planet. But think about 30 years, almost 30 years ago, it was really amazing. It was like futuristic. There were no lab in general.
Yeah, the most modern lab in the world by far.
Were very different, and this was a real one with clear ideas. The structure, the philosophy, the method. Was really implemented here in a purist way and beautiful way. So for the students, it was amazing. You enter in something that is. It's the results of many years for Vernon and for the others.
Yes.
Of thinking and developing the method, and then you get it, any details. That's really, it was really beautiful. And
So many of the, as you point out, many of the world's labs were modeled on this lab of the
absolutely,
current active labs in the world.
And today there are many that are not like this lab 30 or 20 or 30 years ago. So it was really incredibly advanced and was amazing. And the environment was beautiful. It was incredible.
So you also point out how ESL had an important role in the advent at the beginning of neuroeconomics.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was mainly Vernon and Kevin McCabe. So there was also a clear reason, as I said before, ideological reason, because essentially, as you know, Vernon was, as he reported also in his Nobel lecture, was really influenced by Hayek, von Hayek. And von Hayek wrote a book about neurobiology in the last century, in early last century, and was really advanced for the time. So the idea for Hayek was like use neurobiology as potential explanation of the extreme heterogeneity that we have among individuals and diversities, essentially, and meaning also that we cannot aggregate preferences. Okay, so this was a critique to many models, alternative models like neoclassical and the Marxist models, and so Vernon inspired also following this initial work by von Hayek, had a similar idea. This one aspect, but to me was also, and it's very different thing from Hayek, from Vernon Hayek and Kevin Hayek, the ability and the way of communicating and also acquiring and absorbing a concept from other disciplines that Vernon and Kevin had, so from psychology, from neuroscience, and so on and so forth. So they are absolutely open, okay, in any sense, and so I don't know, was a really great moment. It was important for neuroeconomics because essentially they were really economists doing neuroeconomics, okay, because we know that actually strong majority of neuroeconomists are not economists actually. So it was really the very beginning. They had a vision. There was one way of seeing neuroeconomics, and they tried to implement it, and they succeed also, and it was very, very important.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how your experience, your time at ESL, influenced your research later on, or your current research?
In a incredible way. So as I said, I think here we embodied. Now these terms is quite common. We embodied the experimental economics. Because you had to embody it as a student. Because there were very strict rules
to survive.
To survive, you had to do it. It was not very voluntary. But it's so the understanding. There was of course a lot of also kind of counterintuitive aspect of experimental economics here, where natural. You could understand them actually. And there were very strict rules, but also lots of creativity at the same time. Because sometimes rules can block a little bit creativity. It was the opposite here. So the method I think was for me was extremely important. The way and the respect for the data. So you're really the manuality. They were artisans essentially. Were not fabricating.
It's a hands-on field.
Hands-on field and respect for the participants. So it was really something that's particularly through practice and we practice a lot actually. There was a period where we were running and helping running lots of experiments. So many experiments. So we're really working a lot. But it was great actually, because this is the right way I think to do experimental economics, because it's really the practical aspects and the respect for the data, respect for the participants. In an environment which was really perfect. It was amazing. It's still amazing actually.
So you were here in really the early days of experimental economics. It was a small field. Did you have any idea that you were part of something that was going to become huge, very prominent, kind of a mainstay of economics? Did you have that feeling?
I don't know. I think I had, because from here we had was clear that even though in many universities the time didn't have labs actually, and now it's now most universities in this country and in Europe they have laboratories. Still there was respect. There was already at the level where it was respect. At the same time, I remember that, for example, the ESA meetings. Every year, or even when they had multiple times a year, every time in a minute were like very relevant, important papers and new ideas and new games and new experiments. So it was clear that was extremely creative and at the same time also extended from England, US to other parts of Europe. So and then Asia, of course.
So it's clear it was a growth area.
I think it was quite clear. It was growing. So that, but from here was even just staying here was amazing actually. So the inputs we had, I never had after my PhD was really incredible. So very, very beautiful period.
So can you tell us something funny about a kind of a funny experience you had here at ESL?
So we had there are many events, many facts. I don't know. At some point, I remember I found a regular pattern that Kevin McKay was very strict as an advisor, and I hope he will not see this interview. But he was calling me like in the morning, whatever. Anyway, so at some point I found a regular pattern that he had to come here on Saturdays, like every 2 or 3 Saturdays, and I got this pattern. So what I was doing was coming in the morning, very early,
intercepting him.
Intercept him and then pretend he was working for many hours and then emailing to everyone. So everybody knew about it. It was common knowledge, except him.
Looking
of course.
tired, like you've been in the lab all night.
And then going to sleep after. But the lab was very. The environment was very nice. And also there was no minimally hierarchical actually. Of course there was Vernon. But if you think that there are scholars like Kevin McCabe, Stephen Asenti, and already in the late 90s they were already very famous and established, but they were still young somehow, and looks like everything was very egalitarian, and they were listening a lot, and so this is the beauty also, the incredible aspect of Vernon Smith, that the ability to listen, to even to young students, and the respect for people and scholars in general. That's very unique. So it was a very good period, and it was fun. I mean, and running experiments is, as Vernon said, is fun. I mean, so we had but good time, very good time.
Well, it's really been a privilege to talk with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.